And I boldly confess. My mind is alert. My heart is receptive. And I'll never be the same again. Never. In Jesus' name, amen. And we'll wait until our press box guy gets over there to start the video. Yeah, well, it's, that's part of being a Bible training center. It really is. I know it seems kind of weird, those practical things like that, but since the video hadn't started, oh yes it has, hasn't it? I'll be careful what I say. I would actually say some things regarding bodily functions and such to get done, but we won't go there. Okay, go ahead and start that. Now stop that.
Nations that had a strong and that the church, and by that I mean all churches, all denominations, has had a strong influence on the state, and this has worked to our benefit as a nation. Those who created our country, the founding fathers and mothers, understood that there is a divine order which transcends the human order. They saw the state, in fact, as a form of moral order, and felt that the bedrock of moral order is religion. The Mayflower Compact began with the words, "In the name of God, Amen." The Declaration of Independence appeals to nature's God and the Creator and the Supreme Judge of the world. Congress was given a chaplain, and the oaths of office are oaths before God.
We've done everything we could to do what was right, but then it just seemed like all of a sudden it just one thing after another.
They had a little machine where you'd swipe your card and it paid for your child care, and there's also a food stamp card for these people. And it just seemed like we're helping people now.
Because we're all learning every day who we are.
These guys have been our friends the whole time. So
I'm sorry, but we're going to be the buffer for you. We're not on this. So.
I thought it was unusual that they were interviewing a 2-year-old, because I talked to 2-year-olds, and I don't know what kind of information they hope to gain.
Would you be prepared to talk to me about this? I'm curious. Obviously not.
The young child was visibly upset, didn't understand what was going on.
If you want them off your property, I will gladly tell them they need to.
Could you please? Because it's an intrusion.
This isn't taking care of kids. This is being bullied.
In the United States of America, church property in itself is sovereign because it's exempt from federal or state oversight.
There's points of it when you're like, I'm done of being accused that this. You want to quit, but you know that the purpose is bigger than you want to quit.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's not necessarily going to be called being investigated, but that's a little thing that I know, right? Yeah, exactly. But that was just his working title for it. Just want you to be aware of kind of what is being put out there. That's part of the documentary that is being done. So, as always, keeping everybody up to date as we go. Now let's get off the political thing here for a minute and turn to the book of Ephesians. And I would ask that you keep an open mind this morning, because I know people have a tendency to have this preconceived idea of once we turn to Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10, where we're going and what we're going to talk about. He says, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and the power of his might, and put on the whole armor of God, that wiles of the devil. Now the word wiles there is the word trickery. And then when he's talking about stand, that means to abide, covenant, establish, or hold up. So, putting on the full armor of God, we all know what that is, so that's not the direction we're going today. Today we're going to be talking about what does it look like to stand. And as we move forward, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Now let's look at the word withstand. Because that means to stand against, to oppose, or resist. And interestingly enough, the word to stand is hestemi, and to withstand is anthistemi. And you think of the word antihistamine, right? Isn't that what you kind of cover? Exactly. And so that's the context where they get the word antihistamine from. And I'm not going to go into a lot of that, but it's really kind of an interesting search. When you go looking at that, we've been talking a little bit about withstanding. Because he tells you first of all do what? To withstand, right? Or stand, right? And then to withstand. So to withstand means that things are going to be coming against. And too many people, and I've talked privately with some of us about this, because I always like to bounce these ideas that I get in my head off people. Like, is this making sense to you? Because this is what it's kind of meaning to me. But in order to withstand something, you have to go through something. And you know how I've said that one of the greatest deceptions of the enemy is to tell the body of Christ that you're not going to have to go through anything. That's okay, it's pre-trib, you're getting raptured out of here, you're not going to have to go through all the tribulation. Well, that sounds great until you got to go through it. Or anything else for that matter. It's like, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to be ready because you're getting out of it. And it's just not what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches us to stand. And then it tells us that in order to stand, we're going to have to withstand. So this idea, and I've been preaching this for years, and over the years it's kind of upset some people because they think that I preach this violent, aggressive gospel. But the gospel is violent and aggressive, especially to those who would come against such a gospel. So knowing that you're going to have to go through something in order to stand and to develop your ability to withstand, just be ready. In order to be ready, you got to get ready. And in order to get ready, you have to know what you're getting ready for. And what you're getting ready for is to stand against the attacks and trickeries of the devil. It's not going to stop. And people have been so naive, and the church has been so put to sleep by that idea of that. I think that a lot of them are coming to the conclusion now that, maybe I was wrong about this. Maybe there is an aggressive attack we have to be prepared for. And then after that he says, verse 14, stand therefore having your loins girded about with truth, having on the breastplate of righteousness and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace, above all taking the shield of faith, wherewith you'll be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. And we've cartooned the armor of God so much, to where it's a little thing that, you'll teach the kids, and they'll make little shields and little swords, and And we think it's really cute when they do all that. But unfortunately, in that process of teaching the kids this, the adults have bought into the same cartoon. Do you realize truth? Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth. What is truth? His word is truth. He is the word. The shield of faith. That's not just some little thing you hold up or you explain what it is. The shield actually implies that you're going to be hit with some things, right? And you're going to need that faith. Not some little shield to stand up. But you're going to need the faith to withstand these attacks. And I'm sorry, you're not getting out of it. Whether you're here when Jesus returns or not, just as a believer, you're not getting out of having to operate in faith. Sorry. I'm not the one that decided this. He did. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit. And watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplications for all saints. And for me, that utterance may be given unto me, that I may open my mouth boldly to make known the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in bonds, that therein I may speak boldly as I ought to speak. And when I was looking up withstand, I was like, okay, God, well, you're highlighting that. So go to Daniel real quick. Daniel chapter 10. And we're going to see where this kind of ends up. In Daniel chapter 10, verse 5. Daniel says, Then I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz, however you want to say that. His body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass. And the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. See, I love the word where he says, his feet weren't brass, but they were the color of brass. And I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, for the men that were with me saw not the vision, but a great quaking fell upon them, so that they fled to hide themselves. Therefore I was left alone and saw this great vision, and there remained no strength in me, for my comeliness was turned in me into corruption, and I retained no strength. Yet heard I the voice of his words. And when I heard the voice of his words, then was I in a deep sleep on my face, and my face toward the ground. Verse 10. And behold, a hand touched me, which set upon me upon my knees, and upon the palms of my hands. And he said unto me, O Daniel, a man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto you, and stand upright. See, I love this. He starts out in that place and just encounters Jesus and falls on his face, and then says, okay, now start getting up. Puts him on his hands and knees, and then he tells him to stand upright. For unto thee am I now sent. And when he had spoken this word unto me, I stood trembling. Then said he unto me, Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thy heart to understand, and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. Now, this is always, you know how they're taught, and we've been taught, that, well, when you first prayed, I heard you. You know, this is that deal where it took 21 days for that to get answered. And they said, well, from the time you first prayed, I heard you. But But that's not really what it says. It says, for the first day that thou hast set thy heart to understand and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard. It wasn't just when he first prayed. It's when he set his heart to understand. And he did what? He chastened himself. And what God spoke to me this morning, what woke me up, was this statement. A temptation and an attack are two different things. I was like, okay, all right. A temptation and an attack are two different things. So we're going to look at, in just a minute, what that looks like. And keep in mind what Daniel went through here. He chastened himself. And he says, I am come for thy words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. Now I am come to make thee understand what shall befall thy people in the latter days. For yet the vision is for many days. And I'm not going to get into what happens in the next couple chapters, but it's all about the things that we're experiencing right now in the world. Now go to 1 Corinthians chapter 10. And I realize I'm not spending a whole lot of time on any one particular piece here. And in verse 1 he says, moreover, brethren, I would not that you should be ignorant, how that all our fathers were under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and were all baptized unto Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and did all eat the same spiritual meat, and did all drink the same spiritual drink. For they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ. But with many of them God was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted. So what's the purpose of these being an example? So that we won't lust after the same things that they lusted after. Neither be you idolaters, as some of them, as it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play. Now, was that the whole idea for them being in the wilderness? Was just sit down and eat and drink, and then if you're up, just to play? And yet that seems to be the same problem that the church nowadays is having. They get up to play. That they show up and think it's game night, where it's just fun, where it's all just fun. And then it says, neither let us commit fornication as some of them committed, and fell in one day 23,000. Neither let us tempt Christ as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed of serpents. Neither murmur ye as some of them also murmured, and were destroyed of the destroyer. Now all these things happened unto them for examples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. Wherefore let him that thinks he stands take heed lest you fall. Now let's take ourselves back to Ephesians. He's telling you to stand. And then here, there's an admonition to those who think they're standing. Be careful lest you fall. So, I just kind of contend that there's many out there. I'm right here. Pay no attention to the children dropping the toys. But it's so, even a little distraction like that can be used. And that's what happens. And that's one of the reasons we do have kids in here. Because if you can be distracted by that and miss hearing the word, how easy is it for the enemy to distract you with something that you really are interested in? Not that we're not interested in kids. So all that, even that, is designed to train us to not be distracted. So when we have certain kids in here, I'm gonna go here for a second, and they're making those noise, I'm sitting right there usually if she's preaching, focused on that, knowing that this is an opportunity for me to test and prove in myself and how focused I am. And everything that we go through and experience, if we'll let it, could be an opportunity to do just that. Just like what happened in the wilderness with those godly people. They were opportunities to focus. Everything that's going on now, opportunities to strengthen and focus. So treat every situation as that. And then you really won't get caught off guard by the enemy. But so many people, and they're out there, they're on the other side of these walls. They're so easily caught off guard. And there's going to be some things coming down the pike that are going to catch people off guard and get them off track if they're not focused. See, there goes the air conditioner comes on. And that's just those vents up there. Something safe, something familiar, something that, because it has air in it, will actually bring comfort to those who are uncomfortable. Can be a distraction, right? So every little thing that comes up is a lesson. It really is. Now, whether we choose to adhere to those lessons, that kind of determines how we're going to be affected the next time it happens. Anyway, where was I? Anybody remember? Yeah. I said, there is no temptation taking you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above you are able, but will with the temptation also make a way of escape, that you may be able to what? Bear it. Well, wait a minute, you're going to escape it. Why do you have to bear it? If he's going to provide a way of escape, why do we need to be thinking about having to bear it? And the difference between an attack and a temptation, and get this is one of the most important things I'm going to say today. The difference between an attack and a temptation. A temptation has a way of escape. An attack doesn't. Not if you're going to see. Not if you're going to take territory. Not if you're going to be more than a conqueror and overcome. And what's happening is when people feel the resistance and push of an attack, they start looking for a way of escape from an attack. When the very idea of an attack is to overcome the enemy, right? If you're going to overcome the enemy, you don't escape. You fight. Put him in his place. And the Bible talks about for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to what? The pulling down of strongholds. And then it goes into the battleground of the mind. But that's the difference between the temptation, which we're supposed to find a way to escape a temptation. Not embrace it, not just say, oh, well, it must be God's will. But a way of escape of a temptation. But an attack, you fight that. You're strengthened for that. You're prepared for that. Yeah, think about that. And I know, I've said this before, like, donuts are one of my things, which I succumbed to that yesterday. Only because I lost the battle the day before at the store. He provided the way of escape. It was the exit sign of bread. But instead, I have a little box in the cart. So I could go into First Thessalonians later and enjoy it. Yeah, it's not actually in the Bible. It's just in case you're trying to turn here. But realize that in these things that there are temptations, he'll make a way of escape so you'll be able to bear it. He says, wherefore my dearly beloved, flee from idolatry. I speak as to wise men. Judge what I say. So he's telling us this like he's talking to wise people. Now turn over to James, chapter 1. And I saw something in here this morning that it was kind of fresh to me. You guys might have already seen it. I don't know. We'll figure out when we get there. In James chapter 1, verse 12. Blessed is the man that endures temptation. For when he's tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to them that love him. Let no man say when he's tempted, I'm tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. But every man is tempted when he's drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Remember a day where it was saying to chasten yourself? To realize that when we're tempted, that's part of the chastening of ourselves, is to say no. No. And when lust is conceived, it brings forth sin. And what is sin? Separation from God. Basically. And sin, when it's finished, brings forth death. And then he said, do not err, my beloved brethren. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above. So if it's bad, is it God? No. But you get people blaming God for horrible things. It kind of makes me think of that story where the devil was sitting on the curb pouting. Jesus walks up to him and said, devil, what's wrong? Why are you pouting? He says, all those Christians just blame me for everything. And yet, that's kind of what people do. They blame God for things and the devil for things when it's really us that's causing it, us that are doing it, us that are responsible for it. We're supposed to be prepared. And I'm still seeing people that they're not. They're just not. And at what point do we start taking the attacks of the enemy seriously? At what point do we stop complaining about I'm talking about the body as a whole, but us too. I'm not excluding us from this. But at what point, I'll use this as an example, do we stop griping and complaining about sicknesses and illnesses and stand up and do something about it? At what point do we start speaking the word over these problems instead of magnifying the problems over the word? It's so familiar to everybody when I say this stuff, but people are still doing it. And don't get me wrong, if you want to suffer and glorify these things, go ahead. But it's not the best way. It's not even a good way. At what point, when something comes up, do we say, the same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead dwells in me and gives life to my mortal body? Over and over again. At what point do we start operating in gifts of healings and working in miracles? And it's like we know these things. Because when we have the conversations, I know the scriptures are familiar. I know people know the scriptures. But it just seems like they'd rather glorify the problem. And if that's the case, what are you wanting? What are people wanting when I do that? What am I wanting? Am I wanting Dee to know so she'll feel sorry for me? Am I wanting her to know that I'm going through something so she'll maybe back off just a little bit of chores? Yeah. What's my purpose in telling her this problem? Attention. So that's Dana's, okay? So we know in Dana, she wants attention. So when she does that, give her attention. Me, most of the time, it's just like, I just want a break from responsibility for a minute. Yeah, so let me just wallow in it. Yeah. But what is it that causes us to keep doing this? When we know better, do we think it won't really hurt anything? I mean, we talked about momentum. How we all want momentum in our lives, right? And one of the reasons is because momentum's hard to get, but once you get it, it's hard to stop. So if we'll allow momentum of the enemy, whether it be finances or health or words that come out of our mouth, if we allow the enemy that momentum, it's hard to stop. Because once you go down that road of, or whatever, it's hard to get out of that, isn't it? And we've done it. Gosh, we all do it. Or have done it. But remember, if you've got to believe something, believe God. I mean, really. If you're going to put your faith in something, put your faith in Him. There is a better way than the way that we've always done it. His way is a better way. Have I arrived at all of this? Of course not. Of course not. But I keep striving toward that, for that. And I need people to help remind me of that. But sometimes the worst time to remind me of it is when I'm going through it. You know? Because that's not when, I need her to tell me, the words of life when I'm digging a hole for death. And wait a minute, that's not where I'm at right now. But that's when we need it. Because what's the first rule of holes? When you're in one, stop digging. So if while I'm digging, her or anyone else can get me onto another track, to at least don't fill in the hole necessarily, but at least stop digging and exchange my negative mouth for his positive words. Because wasn't that something he said to Daniel? That he heard, he was responding to his words. And we're no different than that. Does it take practice? Yes. I've been practicing for 42 years. And quite frankly, not very good. It does take practice to retrain the things that come out of our head, to retrain our verbal response to a physical manifestation. It does. It takes practice. But what else we got to do, right? And then he says, verse 17, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. So apparently, God's not going to get distracted by our of his own will begat he us with the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, see, he qualified, my beloved brethren, that's that sandwich baby. Let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. You know, Dee was telling me, I hope you don't mind me sharing this. She'll let me know later. Yeah, here we go. No, but you know, she was talking last few days. We spent more time together than we've been able to for a while, and frankly, I'm just loving it. But she did be real sarcastic, which is kind of out of character for her. And I was talking to her about that. It's like, you know, sarcasm it requires such a quick wit. You know what I mean? Because you have to respond. I won't bring anybody up particularly. You and me both, brother. We're known in some respects for our sarcasm. And our quick wit is kind of a nice way to say sarcasm. But I was kind of complimenting her on this because her wit is becoming so fast. And if you only knew where she came from in that. So her sarcasm, although she is taking it out on me, it's kind of nice to watch her develop in that particular gifting.
Standing up for herself. I'm scared of you.
But it's kind of fun to watch. You know, because I'm not really taking it personal. But I'm just like, yeah, you go. Because it just, sarcasm just comes quickly. So if any of you experience this from her, just know that it's something that God's developing in her. And it's like any new toy. We learn to use it as we use it. So, so is that okay? Oh, we'll talk when we get home, okay? Yeah. But see, some of us are more comfortable with that and others aren't. So to see people, and like me, I'm becoming more comfortable in the part of being slow to speak. Yeah, exactly. Even though I have a response, but all because I have a response doesn't mean anything's come out of my mouth. See that sarcasm? That's it right there. That's an example of it. How quick she is. Whereas before, that'd be one of those things of, oh man, I should have done this, or no regrets now. Or you just throwing it all out there. Man, how you do. And then slow to wrath. Verse 20. For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. Wherefore lay apart all filthiness and superfluity of naughtiness, and receive the meekness, or with meekness, the engrafted word which is able to save your souls. Now here's something. This is going to be something we can probably quote. As Marcel would say, I know it's real familiar scripture. But be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving who? Our own selves. I mean, who we really fooling?
Right.
Nobody except ourselves, and we're really not even fooling. Well, unless we're stupid enough to believe it. For if you be a hearer of the word and not a doer, he's like unto a man beholding his face in a natural glass. For he beholds himself and goes his way, and straightway forgets what manner of man he was. Now, look, everybody look at me on this next part, okay? Because just listen to the words I'm saying. But whoso looks into the perfect law of liberty and continues therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the, what word? Word? No, it's not what it says.
Doer of the work.
Of the work. Yeah, exactly. Because now you went from, at first, where it's be a doer of the word, but see how we automatically fill in that word with something we're more familiar with? And we miss the whole context of what he's really trying to say here. He's saying, but be a doer of the work, not word. Because you can't be a doer of the work until you're a doer of the word. So once you become a doer of the word, then you're equipped and fit to do the work. Emphasis on purpose at that last letter. Because they sound so like each other, don't they? And if we're just listening to it, we're filling in those blanks ourselves of what we think it says, then we miss what it is he's actually saying. And I saw that this morning, I was like, wait a minute. Is that right? He being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work. This man shall be blessed in his deed. So now all of a sudden it's like, okay, if I'm a doer of the word, I'll be blessed. That's not what he's saying. If you're a doer of the work, you'll be blessed in your deed. And I'm still wrapping myself around that, or wrapping that around me. Probably a better way to say it. And this isn't works-based salvation or anything. But a doer of the work has to be as important as a doer of the word. Because once again, and I'm repeating myself, because I need to hear it again. If I'm not a doer of the word, I can't be a doer of the work. I can't have on the armor of God and not be a doer of the work. And that's what people are trying to do. They're trying to do the one without the other. They're trying to be a doer of the word without realizing that the word will take you to a place to work. And when we say work the word, first you got to know it, don't you? I mean, can you go to any job and get paid and not do the work? Well, let me rephrase that. In my generation, but in order to do it, we've got to know it. And we keep going over that, and not just know it, but once we know it, then we've got to do it. The word. Be a doer of the word. So if sickness is coming against my body, what is being a doer of the word? What does that look like? If I'm having moments where I need peace or strength, to be a doer of the word, what does that look like? And once I determine what it looks like, now I have to determine what work that causes me to do. Does that make sense? I hope so. Because if all I am just up here flapping and we don't know how to do it, then I'm wasting your time. Not mine, because I need to hear it over and over and over again. But if this isn't causing you to actually do it, then it's your time I'm wasting. And I don't think any of you want to just come here and waste time. I mean, like I said, I've enjoyed the last few days staying home. I could do it on Sunday mornings too, if it wasn't productive. Not just for me, but for you. So at what point do we chasten our own selves to the works of the flesh? We have to, if we're going to move forward into the things of God. And stop fooling ourselves into thinking and deceiving ourselves into thinking that we're something that we're not. At what point does this happen? Hopefully pretty darn quick. So I'm going to read 25 again on purpose. But whoso looks into the perfect law of liberty and continues therein, he, being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his deed. If any man among you seem to be religious, see, I love this. This is a litmus test on someone seeming to be religious, and bridles not his tongue, but deceives his own heart. This man's religion is in vain. If we can't guard our tongue and the things that come out of our mouths and the way we say things, and speak the word in these things, then our religion is in vain. It's worthless. It's empty. It's non-functioning and has no value. If we can't bridle our own tongue. And then he says, pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this: to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction. And that all sounds just something we can do, right? Be benevolent, visit the fatherless. take care of children, the fatherless, take care of the widows in their afflictions. But what's the next point? Didn't have anything to do with anybody else, does it? And keep himself unspotted from the world. So we have people that are doing charitable things, and they have these programs and these companies and these nonprofits that are taking care of children, that are taking care of widows and all this. But it does say, and keep himself unspotted from the world. It doesn't say or. Do this or this. Because if it's going to be pure religion and recognized and appreciated by God, then we can't just take care of people, but we also have to keep ourselves unspotted from the world. And you've got all these organizations that are doing these good humanitarian things, right? But it's empty. It has no value to it because they're really not doing all of it. Because they also have to keep themselves unspotted from the world. And some of these people are the most ungodly people that are doing seemingly the most godly things, right? But unless you realize that, wait a minute, that's part of it too. To keep yourself unspotted from the world. How do we do that? Having Christ inside us. By being a doer of the word, not just a hearer only. And then being a doer of the work, because doing the work is taking care of the fatherless and widows in their affliction. And keeping ourselves unspotted from the world. And the world, man, it's not just spotting people, it's coloring them. Because you can't even see light in them anymore. They're so covered with the world and the things of it. And even in the church, even in the ones who refer to themselves as the body of Christ, are so dark, so worldly, that you can't tell the difference. And the church has been trying to be like the world so they can attract those people. That doesn't attract people. To be like them, that doesn't attract. What it does is it spots and colors us. He said, come out from among them, be separate, touch not the unholy, unclean thing. Then I'll be your Father. But we can't be like them to attract them. It's just not the way it works. It's just not. But having said that, this message is actually for all the people listening out there, not the ones in here. But let's behold our whole faces in the glass. And when you realize that things need to change, don't throw away the glass. Use it to change. When and we all, like ladies, when you put on your makeup, you don't glance, okay, that's where it needs it, put the glass down and just work at it, right? Some days, once again, not judging. But it can look like that, can't it? Sometimes. And do you realize in the spirit, that's what we can look like? If we don't continue to hold up that glass of the reflection of Him as we change. Then yeah, we might think we got our makeup on, but well, the lipstick's over on the cheek, yeah, all the other stuff is, yeah. So let's continue to keep our face before the glass. To be a doer of the word, so we can be a doer of the work. To take care of the children and the widows. But in the midst of that, don't forget, keep yourself unspotted from the world. What does that mean? You know, you got to figure that out. I'm not going to go into, well, maybe one-on-one I might. No, I'm kidding. Because then I'd lose everybody one by one. How about if I just hold up the glass to my face instead of a magnifying glass on you? Are we good? All right. 2 thumbs up. I like that. Father, thank you for the divine life that's inside of us. Because this is the only way that we can do any of this, is with the indwelling of your Spirit. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Lead, guide, and protect your people. One last thing. We ready? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Our dwelling place.